Good morning. So we were holding in the middle of talking in this mimer about the difference between Bayis Rishon and Bayis Sheni, that the first Beis HaMikdash was the level of Yichud Yud Kei, and through the destruction, the Churban of the first Beis HaMikdash, that was the Yud leaving the Kei law, Chachma leaving Bina. That's the idea of the Churban Bayis Rishon. And then there's a Churban Bayis Sheni, which is the Vav leaving the Ketatol, leaving the level of Sfiras HaMalchus. And we also explained that before there could be the entrance in Shalayim Shalmaila, the level of Yud Kei, there has to be before that the Chibur, the Knisa in Shalayim Shalmata, the Chibur of the Vav in the Hay. Then we went on to explain that this is similar to the idea what we find in Chumash Dvarim. And to explain that the connection with Chumash Dvarim, he starts first of all saying that on the one hand, Chumash Dvarim seems to be lower than the previous Chumashim. The previous Chumashim is the Shlishi HaMedaber. There's a third, a level that's higher than the two levels of Seder Ishtalshlus, than Havaya and Moshe, than Seder Malay, and that is the one that's transcribing the Torah, and as opposed to Chumash Dvarim, that is the level of Moshe Rabbeinu himself. It's going through his mind, but on the other hand, the Chumash Dvarim has the Maila of Halach, because first of all, it explains things that weren't explained in the first four Chumashim, both new halachas and halachas that were previously less explained. So it has the Maila of Halach L'maisa, it has the Maila of bringing it down into this world. That is the connection with Sfiras HaMalchus that we're talking about. That Sfiras HaMalchus is what's primary. That, in other words, the Yichud Vavke and Yerushalayim Shalmata, which is a level of Sfiras HaMalchus, corresponds to the level of the Halacha L'maisa that's to be found in Chumash Dvar. And he's going to explain some more connections in this vein between Sfiras HaMalchus and Chumash Dvarim. We're holding the 6th page of the copies, page Yud, line 10. They said, "V'zel gam shesefer dvarim, who sefer chamishi, who keneged heitatos Sfiras HaMalchus." This is also why the sefer dvarim, which is the 5th of the 5 svarim, the 5 chumashim, number 5 indicates a level of hay. So that is the Sfiras HaMalchus again. Also understood according to what the Chazal say. It says that he chiseled her out, and its pillars are 7. So the Chazal say a very interesting thing. Elu Shiva Sifrei Torah. This is going on the 7 books of the Torah, even though ordinarily we speak about 5 books of the Torah. Here, the Chazal refer to the fact that there are 7 books of the Torah. In what way? How do we find that there are 7 books of the Torah? So he says the 7 books of the Torah is because Parshas Vayhi ben Soya Aaron is Sefer La'atzma, because the Parsha of Vayhi ben Soya and Vayhi ben Soya, right in the middle of Chumash Bamidbar, is its own Chumash. So it comes out of so. There is the first part of Chumash Bamidbar until Vayhi ben Soya, that's one Chumash. Vayhi ben Soya, those few psukim are the second Chumash. And the rest of Chumash Bamidbar after that section is a third Chumash. So Bamidbar itself is already 3 Chumashim, plus Bereshis, Shmois, Vayikra, and Dvarim, V'yachtim, Shar, Arbas, Asfarim, Yeshem, Shiva, Asfarim. So altogether, with the other 4 Chumashim, there's altogether 7 Chumashim. If you're talking about the number 7, the number 7 even more has a connection with Malchus. So then Dvarim comes out to be the 7th one of the Chumashim. The seventh one has to do with the seventh of the Midas, Malchus. Al-Pisa, according to this line 17, in our boss, the first four Svarim, and Shisha Svarim, that really, when you divide Midbar into three parts, so it's altogether Breishis, Shmois, Vayikra, and three parts of Midbar, so you have six. So it's four that are six. And Vav Ktavas the Zeir Ampin. These are called the six edges of Zeir Ampin. In other words, the six midas of the Sefer Dvarim, ושבי, and the Sefer Dvarim, the book of Dvarim. That's the seventh. Ubechinas HaMalchus. It's the level of Spheres HaMalchus. Okay, that's fine and good, but we still haven't explained. We started off by saying it seems to be that the first four Svarim are higher because it's Shlishi HaMedaber, the level of Hashem himself, explaining that Havaya spoke to Moshe, whereas Chumash Dvarim is really what Moshe said by himself, via Ruach HaKodesh, like the Taisa says, but seemingly the four Svarim would be higher. He says, even though it's the last of the 10 of the spheres, it's Malchus, it's Moshe and Pias, Mayamr, and so on, but we know Malchus's root is very high. It's known as Spheres of Malchus and Spheres, like Keser Shalamayim calls spheres. The root of Spheres of Malchus is in the sphere of Keser, it's beyond all the spheres. That's also the advantage in halacha of the Torah, which is in Yanishal Mishnah Torah, like we said just earlier in the Maimer. We finished yesterday and we reviewed this morning, that Mishnah Torah, the review of the Torah, Chumash Dvarim, is of all the five Svarim, out of all the five Chumashim, it's primarily concerned with halacha. Legabe close in not Torah, Abba Hasfarim Shalifne is over the general idea of Torah, which is the four Chumashim prior to Chumash Dvarim. In my mind, I was saying it was all like the statement of our Chazal, V'havayi imay sha'halacha k'moisai, that where the halacha is to be found, that's connected with Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei. The Gemara says that when it says Havaya Imay, that what does it mean that Havaya Imay? The halacha is with him. So we see Havaya Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei is associated with halacha, as opposed to the top of page Yud Aleph Shazol Lamaila Yoister Me'inyan Elu Ve'elu Divrei Lekim Chai. That is much higher than what it says, that both these and those are the words of the living God. Elikim Chaim, what's the sphere that Elikim Chaim is associated with? Binyani Basfiris Usphiris Abina, that the idea in Sphiris is the level of Sphiris Abina. When is Elu ve'elu Divrei Elikim Chaim said? When there's a dispute, before we come to the final halacha. When we come to the final halacha, that's the level of Havaya Imay. So we see that halacha has a very high shirish from the level of Havaya. In a similar vein, Chumash Dvarim, which is connected with the ideas of halacha, has a very high source. And like you said before, in all the way Malchus sources in Kesef. Not only is it higher in the level of Elu ve'elu Divrei Elikim Chaim, not only is halacha higher than a place where there's a dispute, and you're saying both these and those are the words of the living God, but also higher the level of Chumash Dvarim. The level of Havaya Imay Halacha K'moisai is even higher than the level of Torah. The way it's in the level of Chachma K'maimer Eiraisim Chachma Nafkes, like it says in Kabbalah that Torah derives from Chachma. So that's the four Chumashim before we get to the halacha of Torah and Mishnah Torah and Chumash Dvarim. Ad l'bchinas Chachma d'Adam Kadmon. When we say Eiraisim Chachma Nafkes, that Torah derives from Chachma, it's not just talking about Chachma d'Atzilus, but it's also talking about Chachma of Ak, Chachma of the highest level after the Tzimtzum. Jezoi b'chinas Shlishi HaMedaber, the level of Chachma d'Adam Kadmon, that is the level that's associated with the third, the number three, that is speaking about and is the one that is, like we said before, communicating to us that Havaya spoke to Moshe. But Torah go find in Torah itself, when we're dealing with in certain sugyas in Torah, where is Chachma the Adam Kadmon represented? In Shlishi Amachriya, it's the third that causes to weigh the opinion to a certain view. That what it says, like we say it every morning in the Yudgimel Midas Rabbi Shmuel Doidish, it says of it that the Torah was Midrash. It says when there's two psukim that are contradicting each other, Yaveh Akas Vashlishi V'Achriya B'Neim, the spiritual level of Yaveh Akas Vashlishi, the third verse that comes and manages to decide between them and join them and so on, that is also the level of Chachma Da'at. But all of that doesn't reach the level of Chumash Dvarim, the level of Halacha is Be'ilu'in and Halacha B'dargin Na'asad Yoser. But as opposed to the level of Halacha, it's an even higher level. And therefore, Chumash Dvarim, though one at first glance might think it's lower, because it's Midas Malchus and it's the level of Moshe Rabbeinu's mind, but really it's higher. Close. Now he's going to explain why is halacha higher than all the other parts of Torah. Inyan halacha u'amshachas rotzna elin u'pchias ha'maisa b'olam hazeh, because the idea of halacha is drawing down the supernal will, the will of Hashem. We said before, Malchus is rooted in Keser. Keser is the level of will. So what we're doing with halacha is we're taking Hashem's will and it's manifesting down here into the world down here below. No, to be able to draw down something all the way below. How does that take place? That's by having something that's higher, pushing that higher level to come down below. Like it's also explained the idea that Hashem looked into the Torah and He created the world. And then the Zohar says, just like Hashem, by looking in Torah, He used that as His blueprint and He created the world through it. So too, a person, when he's involved in Torah study, he makes the world exist. To be able to affect the drawing down of Torah in the world. Like it's known also in the association between the Aseres HaDibros and the 10 utterances which were able to create the world, that we say one is corresponds to the other. The Aseres HaDibros affect the existence and the strengthening in the Asarim HaModes. So how does that take place? How can there be that union? How can there be that strengthening that should come down? The Torah should come down here in the physicality of this world, that He should make the world exist through Torah. So you need to have something higher than Torah to be able to have Torah affect the world. There has to be a much higher Hamshach in Torah itself. Was similar to the idea that David would join the Torah of above with the Eibishter. So in a similar vein, that David joined Torah of above with the Eibishter, meaning he added to the Torah something that it did not have on its own. It did not have that power on its own. And in a similar vein, when a person learns the halacha of Torah, and which is also the idea of Chumash Dvarim, even though one would say that Chumash Dvarim is lower than the 4 preceding books, but because it's the level of halacha, it's drawing down from Ratzon Elyon onto the physical world. So we need to have a power that's higher than it to be able to bring Torah down below. So in Chumash Dvarim, there's actually a higher level than you have all the other parts of Torah. Any questions before we go on?
So could you say Shulchan Aruch or Mishnah Torah is higher than other things because of that?
Yes, that's what comes out. Alter Rebbe speaks about this in Tanya as well. The special milah of that says, Kol Hashoyna halachas b'chol yom. Whoever studies halachas has a very great quality and advantage over anything else.
So that's why the Babylonian Talmud would be higher, because it goes into more detail.
Because that has more halacha lemaisa rather than Talmud Yerushalmi. Okay, bottom of page Yud Aleph, Ois Dalet, line 21. According to what was explained previously, the advantage of the lower hay that's connected with the idea of action, and we said in a similar vein, Hashem will only enter the lower base, the higher base, the higher Yerushalayim. After he enters the lower Yerushalayim, meaning first there has to be the Heitata, and then there can be the Heilam. Yuvan Gamma Ilu the Veshava Btzedakah and Gamma Tzim Bמשפט that will also be understood the advantage of her returnees will be with tzedakah, with charity, over what it says ציון will be redeemed with Mishpat, which we asked earlier about the differences between them and the advantages of one over the other. The idea behind this is the top of page basically it says in the pasuk on the starters lavaya lekenu. That which is concealed is for avaya lekenu. The hadniglas lanu ulevaneinu. That which is revealed is to us and to our children. So the Alter Rebbe explains in Tanya, hanistaros, the levels that are considered concealed, that's lavaya lekenu, who inyan yudke shel shem havaya. That's the level of Yudke of Shem, Yudke Bavke. Those are considered concealed. In the simple level, the level of Yudke is above the worlds. It has to do with Almadis Kasya, the concealed world. That's called Hanistaris. Here he explains the reason why it's Hanistaris is based on what they are in a person. What is the avoida of a person? We know that just like in Hashem, there's the levels of Yudke Vavke. There's correspondingly, the Alter Rebbe explains in Tanya, there is in our avoida that corresponds to the different letters of Shem Yudke Vavke. What the Yudke Vavke in a person's avoida? It says in line 3, Shinyanim avoida v'utchila v'rechimul, the b'maycha v'libam, the fear and the awe and love that's in the brain and the heart. Every single person, according to his measure, he has a particular love and awe, and it's caused by the level of Yudke. It's derived from the Yudke because Yudke is the intellect that brings them to the awe and love. And this is every single one according to the measure, to the level. The awe and love that one person has for Hashem is not the same awe and love that another person has. It's dependent upon their appreciation, their understanding, their heart, and so on. Every person is different. This means what it says in the Lashon HaZohar, every single person according to his measure, because there are different levels in it. The intellect and the minds and opinions and views and character traits are not the same by every single person. And therefore, and therefore, one person's intellect does not become excited from and inspired from what excites and inspires another person's intellect, like it's written in the introduction to Tanya about how ordinary books of ethical teachings are not going to be able to be tailored for everyone because different people are inspired by different things. So that's called hanistaris. That is called concealed because it's internal and it's unique to every individual. It's not something that is across the board that everybody does equally. Everybody has the same love and awe of Hashem. V'haniglois says, V'haniglois lanu u'vaneinu. And what's revealed is to us and to our children. V'haniglois, so this explains, is as if you could read it, Vav K is niglois. Divide the word V'haniglois, and Vav K is niglois. In Vavke Shel Shem Havai, it's the level and idea of Vavke Shem Yudke Vavke. Binyan Bavoidu Kiyum Torah Mitzvah Paisad Maisa Poyol. The idea in Avoid of Vavke is the fulfillment of Torah mitzvahs in action. That's the Alter Rebbe explained that Vavke has to do with the levels of Vav has to do with the voice, and He has to do with speech, or voice has to do with Torah, and He has to do with Maisa, Machshava Dibra Maisa. So it's the mitzvahs we do in action. The mitzvahs we do in action is called niglis. It's called reveal. Why are they called reveal? Because there's no distinctions. Everybody has the same Shulchan Aruch. And this, all Yidden are the same. So therefore, since all matters are dependent upon our actions and our service throughout the entire time of Golus, in other words, what we do in Golus is what brings about what's going to be in the Geula. So therefore, if we're speaking about Hashem entering the Yerushalayim Shalmata, that Hashem should come into the lower level of the Beis Hamikdash, the Bayis Sheni, the level of, there should be the Yichud of Zoh and Nukva before it can be the Yichud Yudke. So we need to also accomplish the Yichud Vavke. That's what needs to be our focus. Not on the Yudke, the Av and the Yira, the Hanistoris Lashem Elokeinu, but we have to focus on the Vavke, on the mitzvahs v'poyel. Line 13, moving it's understood. They live for Lamaila Yichud Vavke. The effect above the union of Vavke, like we said, that this destruction of the second base of Migdash, the Vav left the Heitatom. That in the Yichud Vavke is dependent the main Churban, because there was that separation. The Vav was not Meir in the Hey anymore. The Zav was not Meir in Malchus. And only after we make the Yichud Vavke, only after he enters Yerushalayim Shalmata, we repair the Churban by his Sheni, then there could also be the union of the Yudke, Yerushalayim Shalmata, and Malsiv Beis, like we said earlier, his base. So how is that done? By doing our own Vavke. That's through the avoid of Yidden, the fulfillment of Torah mitzvahs, specifically in action. That is the level of V'haniglois, the Vavke Shem Yudke Vavke, when we do Torah mitzvahs, when we learn Torah, we fulfill mitzvahs. So then we are bringing about the entry of Hashem in the Yerushalayim Shalmat and the rebuilding of the second base of Migdash that needs to precede the rebuilding of the Yudke. By days of Poilim as being base of Migdash, and through this we affect the building the future base of Migdash. All of them are concerning the future base of Migdash. It says, "Godly as a it'll be greater the glory of this final home than the first home." So then there's two ways of explaining this, but the way how we're explaining this now, it's talking about the final home, is talking about the base of Migdash HaShlishi. That the base of Migdash HaShlishi will be even greater, not just in the second base of Migdash, but the base of Migdash HaShlishi will be greater even than the first base of Migdash, which had all the 5 things that were missing, the second base of Migdash, etc. And the general future redemption will be brought about through our actions in Torah mitzvahs and Maisa Poyol. In the cave with the seven gover. Then it'll be the idea that it says that the female will encircle the male. Now we know the level of the female, the Makabel, that's the level of Malchus. And we said that this whole idea is the mitzvahs is in Malchus, and the base by Sheni repair, and the Vav case about Malchus, and Mishnah Torah Dvarim and Allah, and it's all the idea of Malchus. Because then it'll become revealed the Maila of Malchus over Gever, over the male, over the level of Zeir Ampin, over the Mashpia. That's also the advantage on the quality of the returnees with Tzedakah. It said earlier in the Maimer that who are those that will be redeemed in the way of Mishpat? that they will be able to be redeemed because of the level of judgment, meaning that they are justifiably demanding and are entitled to redemption. So he said those are the levels of tziyah. Those are the levels of those that are Bali Torah, etc. Then there's Shaveha, the returnees. That's talking about ordinary people. They will return in a way of tzedakah. Tzedakah means that they will need to have this not as something that they could demand by justice, that they are justified in their being returned. This is done by Hashem's kindness. But we also said right away at the beginning of the Maimer that tzedakah is a higher level than mishpat. Mishpat is limited. Tzedakah means that I give without any consideration. It's not a quid pro quo, so there's no limitations to it. So this the Rebbe turns around, that the Anoshim Pshutim, the simple people that are serving Hashem, they reach a level of tzedakah which is higher even than the level of mishpat. So he says in line 23, only through the avodah of ordinary people, they are doers. Their avodah isn't doing the actions of mitzvahs. They reach much higher. They affect the redemption in the way of tzedakah. What's the idea of charity? Hashem's charity. That that's without any boundaries, limitations whatsoever. And in that unlimited fashion, that's the way it comes down into the world. Where do we see this tzedakah aspect, the unlimited aspect of Hashem coming down into the world? Also in the world, it will increase the knowledge and the wisdom and truth, like it says in the Rambam in Hilchos Tshuva. Until we fulfill the promise that all flesh will see together that the mouth of Hashem spoke. Like the Mittler Rebbe explains, even the physical inanimate object will recognize that the mouth of Hashem spoke. That's what it means. That even to the most lowest thing, it doesn't just mean but it means the flesh, but even lower than that. Be as Goel Tzedek in the coming of the righteous Redeemer. Goel Rishon, the first Redeemer, Moshe Rabbeinu Shul Goel Achron, that's the final Redeemer, because we're talking here about the mile of Moshe, so he's bringing in Moshe as being the first Redeemer, which is the final Redeemer. All of them are concerning the final Redeemer. It says, "V'David Avdi Nasalam Lo'ilam," that David, my servant, will be the exalted one over them forever, the leader over them forever. Any questions?